Right, let's get some analysis then on the report. We're now joined via Zoom by political analyst Khanyi Magubane. A very good afternoon to you, Khanyi. It's always a pleasure to have you here on SABC News.
Thank you very much, Flo, and a very good afternoon to your viewers as well.
Let's talk about whether or not it's too early to speak about implementation. I mean, a lot of people are already asking about, will people be held accountable? Those that have been fingered so far, will they be punished? I mean, at this time, we're still awaiting, of course, the second and third part of the state capture report. Should we be speaking about implementations yet?
Absolutely. I think we should be speaking about implementation, because if we don't and we want to wait until the whole report is released, which of course the acting judge president had said at the end of the third part, then they will table their clear recommendations. But I think what has been provided so far paints a very good picture for starting to build cases, for starting to build the sort of foundation to future prosecutions, which in my view, without those prosecutions or people being brought to book, then this entire exercise would have been in vain. And the report, as we know, over 800 pages long, just part one. I think it's important for us, and I like the fact that it's been made available to the public to also form their own opinions about what has come out of the commission. But to your question, I think it's definitely important for those who are in a position, to start formulating cases against those that need to be prosecuted to do so. Of course, it would be premature to say which individuals those will be, but I think we can start already building cases, as we've seen the corruption, the corroding of state organs. We've seen the report so far detailing a lot of that, and in the report, Judge Zondo does say that the commission has in fact established that there was state capture. So that in itself makes it very clear that already the ground should be established for cases to be prosecuted in future.
I mean, Judge, it was a long period that, we went through the state capture commission. But what do you make of the report being released, though, in three parts, and not just, the whole report being given out and given to the president, and us being able to scrutinize a whole document? I mean, the first part is already long enough as it is, but I'm just wondering what your viewpoint is in terms of it being broken down into three parts like that.
Well, I think at its most common sense basis, the judge president is not finished, or the commission is not finished with putting together part one, part two, and part three. I do think that there are parts of the report that are still being tied up. I think that there are the last minute loose ends that are being tied together. And we know that the commission has been under pressure to release the report, and they've had many extensions over the years. So I think part and parcel of why they've given the president part one of the report is, if anything, just to satisfy their mandate to release the report. But in my own personal view, I actually think that it's a good thing that the report is being released in three parts, because then it gives us the opportunity not to be overwhelmed by all the information that's going to come out, but to actually break it down piece by piece and to be able to understand the full extent of state capture, and for us to be able to sink our teeth into the various parts of state capture without having to be overwhelmed by this full report that comes out at the same time. Yes, it may be frustrating to have those moments of waiting in between, but I think that perhaps the judge president, or the acting judge of South Africa wants us to really take time to really understand the extent to which they've investigated this case. They've already put forward the number of subpoenas that were taken out and the number of people who came forward to testify at the commission. So in my personal view, Flo, I think that it's a good thing that it's come out in three parts, though other views are saying that the Judge President Zondo should have just released it, in one go.
All right. Well, the NPA obviously has a lot of work ahead of it, following some of the recommendations. Obviously, more of those that we will see as time goes on, and after we've seen the three parts of the report. Are they equipped and capable of making making any sort of prosecutions? I mean, we live in a country where we have seen so many of these kind of commissions happening and these sort of investigations happening, and recommendations are made, and nothing ever comes out of it. I mean, just to think about the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, for example, nothing came out of that. Long haul where we spend so much money and nothing comes out of it. I mean, how do you see this playing out, for instance?
I think that there are too many eyes on this commission for it not to have a conclusion that ends up in prosecutions. Flo, you'll remember that part and parcel of what the Zondo Commission looked at is the funding that was channeled into political parties that was gained out of irregular tender awards. And we've seen also suppliers like Busasa who have been implicated as having channeled a lot of their money, which they got from government contracts, into political parties, and the ANC being one of those biggest beneficiaries. So it really would be a travesty of justice and of democracy if nothing came out of this particular commission. And it's funny you should mention the TRC. I was thinking about it just earlier when I was preparing, Flo, because those were one of the biggest criticisms of the commission, that nobody was ever held accountable. And it would be a really sad time in our history if the government has gone through such lengths to have the Commission on State Capture only for nothing to come out of it.
Yeah. And what do you make of the defense or some that have indeed had their names brought out in this first part of the report? Just top of mind, thinking of Khanyi Magubane, who said that, it just seemed as though the outcome was predetermined to begin with. He did appear at the commission. He gave solid evidence. He gave actual documentations, but he's of the belief that this was completely ignored, and that the outcome was always going to be this way because it was predetermined. What do you make of that?
Well, I think as far as Mzwalela Manyi is concerned, I don't want to really hone in too much on that, but we know that it has come out that under the tenure of Themba Maseko, state capture wouldn't have been able to take place, thereby implicating by extension that Mzwalela Manyi enabled through the contracts that were given to ANN7 and the New Age and many other Gupta-owned media enterprises. And so I think that all the people who've been implicated in this report will, of course, seek legal counsel. And I think that we're going to see many opposing appeals against this, and we're going to see long and lengthy court cases playing out. I don't think anyone wants to go down without a fight. For me, what's interesting is how the ANC is going to respond to members of its party, whether you're talking government ministers or executives standing in high levels of corporate, because an ANC member doesn't have to be in government. An ANC member is somebody, in corporate, is somebody working a day job, but members of the ANC itself being implicated in using money that was meant for tenders and other jobs and rechanneling those funds into the party. The question is, what due diligence has the party taken in terms of how clean the money is that comes into the party? And of course, we know now there is the Political Party Funding Act that has come into play for exactly those reasons. But the interesting thing for me is how are political parties like the ANC going to respond to having received all of this money over the years? How are they going to react to calls that they should give back the money? I mean, we don't know in which direction the judge is going to take this at the end, but I don't think that the ANC is going to be without fault. And so with me, I'm really looking forward to that response.
Yeah, and speaking of the ANC, in fact, I wanted to go there. No doubt anybody can see that the ANC is split into what we see as perhaps two camps at this time, what people are calling the Tumas, what some others are calling the RTs, for example, and some are saying this is really all still factional. The report itself is also painting a picture of it being factional in terms of the fact that it seems as though it was only those who are seen as the RETs that were targeted. It seems as though those who were linked to Zuma in some ways were the former President Jacob Zuma are the ones that are in fact being called out, whose names are being raised and who are being red flagged. And some are saying that this at the end of the day is still a factional issue. What do you make of those sort of comments or that train of thought?
Well, I don't know if it's really a factional issue as opposed to being a factual issue, because we know that part and parcel of what enables state capture to be enabled is the strategic appointment of ministers and board executives and corporate executives that were part and parcel of this web of networks that were in place that enable state capture to happen. So I think that if something has been established by fact, even though you can come forward and retort and say that I'm being implicated because I'm aligned to this faction and because I'm not in that faction. If I was in the Tumamina faction, for instance, I wouldn't be aligned. I think that's really a cop-out, and it's really weakening the job of the commission, which was to look at what happened in government and how government with the SOEs, colluded together to enable state capture. I think that we shouldn't lose track and attention of what this report is about. Issues of factionalism, those are party issues, and that's for the ANC to sort out itself if it feels like the report is against the RET forces and is an attack on the RET forces by the Tumamina forces. Those are ANC issues, and those should be discussed at that level. But at the level at which we are concerned right now is the government and how an entire administration has been painted, with a blot of blood, to say that under this administration, an already weakened public procurement system was weakened even further and almost eroded to the ground through state capture. I think those are the important points that we really need to stick on and really focus on, because that's where the prosecutions are going to come from. You're not going to be prosecuted because you're a member of the RET, but because your role in state capture calls for you to be prosecuted.
All right, Khanyi Magubane, always a pleasure talking to you. Thanks very much for your analysis and input here on SA Today. We appreciate it. That is Khanyi Magubane, political analyst, weighing in, of course, on the state capture report.